Greg Sankey is the most powerful man in college sports. I cannot dispute that. Supreme Leader Sankey, most powerful man in all of college sports, and he's standing with a big fat bottle of toothpaste, hand on it, ready to squeeze, and squeeze out a bunch of toothpaste that you will never be putting back in the tube, right? Are we just days or weeks from this whole thing changing forever? We will find out very soon. We'll find out very soon. Here's the last section or sections of Ross Dellinger's big article about the war, quote unquote. That is not my word. That's the word of a Big 12 athletic director. The war that is going on between the SEC, Big 10, and everybody else. In Destin this week, SEC administrators are expected to examine the governance proposal and the possibility of separating football completely from under the NCAA. So they're going to be talking about, do we take football completely out of the purview of the NCAA, make it a totally separate thing? During its spring meetings last week, the Big Ten swung its support for doing just that. They want to separate football and football governance. In an unreported and little-known fact, SEC presidents in March quietly authorized their commissioner, Sankey, to split from the NCAA if he deems that the right move. So again, I say, Greg Sankey, the most powerful man in college sports, he has been authorized to, hey, we can just detach from the NCAA if we need to. If that's what I think is best, we can do that. Like, these guys truly do hold all the cards. You think about how consequential these decisions are. Not just, we've already talked about the playoff and what is going to happen there. We haven't gotten into the NIL and the, signing your rights away from being able to sue if you don't like that your state laws can't save you from the NIL Deloitte operation. On top of that, they're talking about separating football out from every other sport. And you think about what a consequential, monumental change that would be for everything. Like, that's one of the things that is just low key, as the kids would say, like low key hanging in the balance right now. And look, it's hard to argue that in a lot of ways, you maybe need to govern football a little bit differently. Like, a part of this is like, hey, if you were just doing football differently with all the conferences and the travel, and you could still keep together a Pac-12 in non-revenue sports or whatever, so they're not having to fly from LA to Piscataway on a Tuesday to go play a volleyball game or something like that. There are a lot of things that would make more sense if you separated it out that way. I do get it. But if you do pull it out from the NCAA, then it's also like you have this, it starts to feel more and more like this is just the USFL, the XFL, just another professional sports league that's a professional football league, rather, that's not the NFL. So, I don't know, man. Dellinger says there are gripes over the NCAA's new governance proposal from both the power leagues, believing that 65. Okay. Yeah. Let's set this part up. So a part of what Dellinger talks about is that the NCAA's new governance proposal gives 65% basically of the voting and decision-making power to the Power Four conferences. So they've got a 65% pull there. And in true college sports fashion, that 65% made everybody mad. It made everybody mad for different reasons. The power conferences think that 65% isn't enough, that they need even more decision-making power. And then everybody else looked at it and said, you're giving the power conferences way too much power. Like, they're going to screw everything up even more if they have 65% of the power here. So nobody's happy. And the NCAA can't seem to figure this out or, govern in a way that's going to bring some order to everything. That is exactly where we're at in college sports, man. That is like college sports in a freaking nutshell right now. At least 3 commissioners of non-FBS conferences have publicly criticized the model, this 65% thing. At least one of them fearing that the Big 10, SEC, Big 12, and ACC will use their voting block to restructure the men's basketball tournament, the NCAA's only real moneymaker, by impacting automatic qualifiers and revenue payouts for the lower leagues. Now, make no mistake, this is one of those things that would suck for everyone. This would be a bad thing for the long term of the NCAA tournament and college sports. But in the short term, it could definitely benefit your Power Four conferences. And even as a Big 12 fan, the Big 12 would stand to benefit from this if the tournament expanded, if they changed how they're doling out more bids, give more bids to power conference teams, which ergo means more money. That's all good for the Big 12, but I do not want this. And this is where I'd make the point. Like SEC, Big 10 fans, you can stand up and say, hey, while this would benefit my league in the short term, I do not believe this to be in the best long-term interest of the sport and everything that is happening around this. And even my own self-interest long-term. We don't need to destroy the NCAA basketball tournament. We don't need to push toothpaste out of that tube that we can't get back in and screw with the NCAA basketball tournament, which is just perfect already. We don't need to do that. So even though Brett Yormark is on board for that, he's pushing for something that he thinks would be better for his conference short term here. I believe it is short-sighted. I believe it is something that is not great for everybody long term. I would not support that at all. And I can definitely share in the concern of the non-FBS conferences that have publicly criticized all this and people that would be really, really worried about it. Big Sky Conference Commissioner Tom Wistrell is one who spoke to this, who said, quote, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Man, that's a bar right there. That is a bar from Tom Wistrell. There's going to be no checks and balances for them. There's going to be no limit to what the Power 2 can do if you give them any more. Tough to disagree, man. Tough to disagree. There is not any limit as to what they can do, as we're seeing by this battle where they're going to push through, in all likelihood, these 4 auto bids. The Power 4 conferences have their own issues with the model. At 65%, all 4 leagues must vote the same way to pass an issue, which, of course, seems like a problem right now when they are literally at war with each other. So it's a potential impediment to legislation, given the growing schism between the Big 2 and the other 2. So, yeah, I mean, all this is just, when people talk about college sports being a mess, like this is a true and total mess. Hey, gridlock, can't get anything done, 65%. We don't need to vote together. We can't get along. Absolute power, corrupting absolutely the Big 10 and the SEC with what they're trying to do. Group of 6 and smaller are all being left totally in the dust, man. I mean, there's so much that is just a complete and total mess. There's a little bit of talk here from Dellinger about the revenue sharing cap and the Deloitte run NIL clearinghouse that's supposed to legislate fair market value. Says, what happens when those deals are rejected? Will there be more lawsuits? Quote, we have to decide if we want to be governed, Illinois Athletic Director Josh Whitman said. I mean, wouldn't that be a nice place to be? You've got so much power, I guess, if you're the SEC and the Big 10 right now, that you can just say, hey, we get to decide if we want to be governed. Maybe we don't want to be governed. Maybe we just want to do our own thing and say, forget any kind of governing body here. Screw you guys. We're gonna just do our own thing. Must be nice. What a world. What a world. There's a question posed here. We get a Mac Rhodes quote from Baylor Athletic Director. Will this NIL clearinghouse be able to stop agreements that are not fair market value, or will it, like many suspect, be sued into oblivion? Quote, that is the $100 million question. Baylor Athletic Director Mac Rhodes said, I'll say this, it has to work. For this to be a good settlement, that component has to work, and I think it is the most important. Yeah. I mean, if that doesn't work, you're right back to this wild pay-for-play model that we're in right now, and the arms race will just never, ever stop. And if you want evidence of the arms race, perfect example, actually, is what happened today with PJ Haggerty at K-State, who's a top 5 player in the portal. He signed for, according to Adam Zagoria, a $2 million deal that has $500,000 in incentives. Okay, that's more money than Coleman Hawkins made last year when he signed at K-State. And the narrative on PJ Haggerty is that it's a bargain. Jeff Goodman was out there agreeing with someone on Twitter that it was a bargain at $2.5 million. Last year at this time, K-State signed Coleman Hawkins for $2 million, and it was a story because that was this gross overpay and way too much money, and that followed Hawkins the entire year. Guys, it's been 1 year, and we went from $2 million being a gross overpay to $2.5 million being a bargain for a top-flight player in the portal. So that will just continue. If you don't get this under control, that will continue. Teams will need more money. You'll invest more in private equity, and that's the road you're headed down if the NIL clearinghouse Deloitte doesn't actually have any teeth, if they can't enforce this. So let's be perfectly clear about where that's going. Yeah, there's a quote here from former Duke and Notre Dame athletic director Kevin White, who says we're approaching an irreconcilable position between the academy and college athletics. That is frightening.